This week on The Futurists, Shelly Palmer.
The first question about quantum computing, Rob and Brett, is, if you built the Death Star, would you A, rent it out, or B, go some planets?
Oh, yeah.
Whoever gets a quantum computer first is going to be faced with that choice, not in theory, but in practice.
Hey there, welcome back to The Futurist. I'm Rob Tersick with my co-host, Brett King. Hi, Brett.
Hey. It's good for us to finally be doing one again. You know, we haven't done one together in a while, but...
Time zones are hard, travel's hard, startups are hard, so we're both stretched in a million different directions. Great to see you. Lots of news. Holy cow, this has not been a year that is devoid of news. I got to say, it keeps me on my toes. Not all news that I want to read about, though, candidly. I got to say, sometimes I avoid the newspaper because I want to maintain a positive mental state. Not easy to do in those circumstances.
Well, let's stick with news from the future, right?
Well, there was a news story that came up a while ago, and I know it's in your wheelhouse, Brett, because you're a fan of this kind of stuff. For me, I need a little bit of help to unpack it. So we've invited one of our favorite futurists to join us on the show, Shelly Palmer. Shelly, welcome back to The Futurists. It's always fun to have you here. People love to hear from you, not just here, but on the news, elsewhere. Your great blog and your newsletter that you send out, I read it every day.
Thank you.
You do a very good job of unpacking the news of the future, but also doing it in a way where it's digestible. So you kind of present it in language that regular folks like me can understand. And that's something I really appreciate. So folks, if you're not familiar with that, you definitely got to check out shellypalmer.com. This can come from the heart. I mean, I am a huge fan, longtime fan. And one of the things that came up in just a few weeks ago, February 20, was an announcement by Microsoft that they have developed a brand new chip. Brett, tell us a little bit about this chip, this brand new Marjana 1 quantum chip.
Well, the really interesting piece of this is they've sort of got this multi-core topological approach to this, which allows theoretically for many more qubits than are available on classical quantum chips like the Willow and, D-Wave and IBM's chips and so forth. And to support that claim, they said essentially they've come up with a new state of matter or a new type of way of sort of processing this sort of intermediary state of matter that is, it sort of removes the constraint of the superconducting materials that we normally have with qubits. One of the things we've talked about with qubits and quantum computers before is that quantum computers are going to change a lot of the way we think about computing, but they can unlock all of these secrets of science, the universe, and so forth, but it requires stable qubits. And the problem with qubits is because they're so sensitive to temperature and movement and so forth, making a stable quantum computing platform, error correcting is the challenge. And so there is the proposition by Microsoft, this entirely new qubit architecture, is going some way or all the way to solving that problem. But again, it's sort of really edgy physics science. So I don't know, Shelley, what are your thoughts on it?
That was a pretty good job of unpacking that press release. Thank you.
So where do we start? Years ago, you go to CES and everybody's hanging out their quantum computer. And they all look like upside-down wedding cakes made of copper or brass or something in gold colors. Years back, Microsoft put together a programming language called Q#. And if you were a C# programmer, you could use Q# in a quantum simulator to call certain quantum functions, and you had this ability, theoretically, to start developing what at the time they were calling, quantum applications. The number one thing you think about when you think about quantum computing is encryption, because the way that quantum computers compute allows them to break problems up in ways that traditional computers can't. And rather than say the classic thing where I would say, bits are ones and zeros and they're deterministically on or off, and yet a qubit which is a quantum bit, can be on or off or have a superposition and be both. And everybody goes, that's great. What does that mean? And as Richard Feynman, may he rest in peace, used to say, everybody who says they understand quantum physics is lying, and everybody who says they don't understand it isn't. So, this is we're not talking about the two slit experiment here. We're not talking about, the probabilistic reality of quantum mechanics. Just to understand that our world, like the most concrete thing I can say about this is that our world completely runs on encryption. Everything is encrypted. Our shopping, our credit cards, our banking, and not just the world online that you touch every day with a secure website. And it's not about your privacy, where your personal identifiable information or your personal health information is available or unavailable. Literally, your bank account is fully encrypted. And every time you swipe a credit card, the transaction is fully encrypted. And the ability for us to transact in the world in which we live today is brought to you by prime numbers, semi-prime numbers, and the inability to factor those things past a point. So for those of you who really want to talk about quantum computing, let's go back to first principles. I don't care how cryptic your 8-character password is. It's going to take under 10 minutes to crack. I don't care how secure you think it is. If it's 8 characters long, it's going to take under 10 minutes to crack. I don't care how uncryptic it is. And I don't mean encrypted, I mean cryptic. If it's 70 characters long, it's the age of the universe to crack for a traditional computer. According to everything everyone says, should a fully functional quantum computer exist, nothing that is traditionally encrypted can survive for more than a few minutes, which means the nuclear codes are up for grabs, which means anything in an open system, anything you can get to online is yours. So the first question about quantum computing, Rob and Brett, is if you built the Death Star, would you A, rent it out, or B, go some planets?
Oh, yeah.
Whoever gets a quantum computer first is going to be faced with that choice, not in theory, but in practice.
This is why China's been racing for this, and we know they've been mining encrypted data. The whole weather balloon shot down in August 2022, with the F-22. That was all about mining encrypted data.
Data for some future computer, right?
I think,
right.
Brett, just to be clear, it was to stockpile the data for some
data mining.
When those encrypted data could be unencrypted by quantum computing.
Right. So this is because the whole security infrastructure that we have that's internet based and also in terms of modern communication is RSA encryption based. Right. And I only learned today because I looked it up. Do you know what RSA stands for? Shelley, if you know this. Yes, I know. So I'm impressed that you even know that. So Ravesh Shamir Adelman is what RSA stands for. It's that asymmetric encryption algorithm technology. But as Shelley's saying, that goes away with a stable quantum computing platform. Now, traditionally, that's been thought that 100,000 qubit, quantum computer would provide that stability with enough error correction. But the Majorana chip proposes an entirely different architecture to that problem, essentially. So
and a million qubits when it's fully baked. But so this could happen tomorrow, or it could happen never, or somewhere between those two time points.
So in a way, it's if people recall 25 years ago, we were panicking and had our knickers in a twist about a thing called the Y2K problem.
Yeah.
Which turned out to be not that big of a problem. Part of that was because a lot of work got done in the background to correct systems that were vulnerable to that particular issue. But this is like the real deal, right? So this time,
this is like someone has a master key to every encryption technology we've had since the 80s.
Hold the phone. Yes. It is absolutely true that if you were to unleash a quantum computer on an RSA world, the RSA world has no defense. Enter quantum encryption.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of work done. In fact, everybody I know in security that does that, bank, financial services, and it's not so much oddly, it's not so much in the healthcare side, because I think they feel like less threatened by this, but all the financial services groups that we've worked with, everybody's got some version of more than a theory in practice, what some level of quantum encryption would look like. And you need specialized hardware. You definitely do. You're going to need quantum computers to exist. There is I think I have to look it up. I think it's the acronym is QKD, but I don't remember. Let me see.
So there's
I got to look it up. It's quantum key distribution,
PQC, which is post quantum cryptography, but there's
PQC
crystals.
is post quantum, and then there's
there's crystals Kyber and crystals dilithium, which are the sort of signature post quantum algorithms right now, from NIST at least, right?
Right, and QKD is the other one, and it's I forget what it stands for. I think it's quantum key distribution. But
for our audience here, because we're going a little deep into the gold mine here,
we are geeking out.
So basically, this is like an arms race in the sense that as quantum computing evolves, then you're going to have quantum encryption, and then the whole principle there is security is not a product; it's a process, and it's an ongoing process. So from time to time, people will ask me, people who listen to the show will ask me, like, well, what should my son study or what should my daughter study when they go to college? And one thing I'm getting from this conversation is quantum encryption is a guaranteed forever job. Like if you are a young person who's considering what to do in the future and you want full employment opportunities, focus on that field because it's brand new.
You know that's not true, Rob. You know that's not true because this is going to be brought to you by algorithms and AI, and it's going to be an enduring arms race and a battlefield of artificial intelligence. No humans are going to be involved in this. This is going to be your AI fighting my AI, each one trying to torture each other into giving up the bank accounts. I can't imagine what this war is going to look like. It will be an enduring cyber war that will never end.
Actually, Shelly, let me ask you, this is how I've been approaching this in conversations with banks. I've said, this is my take on it, but I'd love your input into this. I said, I think that, cloud native providers are going to just be able to plug in post quantum encryption because, you just add the quantum stack into the cloud, right? But if you've got on-premise solutions and you're not hybrid, at least, that's going to be a lot more difficult because, you then have to, how do you integrate quantum in unless you have your own quantum stack, right? So
you are so right about what the pain is going to look like when someone gets this right. I think, if that Microsoft chip can be done in quantity, you can't get enough A or H100 cards off NVIDIA right now to just do the compute you need to do. Amazon's buying every one they make. Google makes their own TPUs, but if you need GPUs, you got to go to NVIDIA right now. I think they've got a backlog of forever. And so can you imagine what the backlog of quantum chips would be, especially if they have to operate at or near absolute zero and what the environment needs to be? It's like, come on, guys. I have no idea what on-premise means. And by the way, what that could mean, Brett, and this would be absolutely wacky. Could you imagine that is the catalyst that makes the whole planet data center oriented? Like there's no more on. Look, you could argue. A lot of people don't. This is a debate that's been going on. And Rob, I know you know this. This is a debate that's been going on for years. When the cloud started, there were like two religions.
Yeah.
Like one was I'm on premise. I'm the on premise guy. And the other was like I'm good for the cloud. And they literally were faith based.
Yeah.
And the argument that won the day on the cloud side was that do you think your security team is better than all of Amazon's,
Yes,
all of
yes.
Google's, or all of Microsoft's. Like, really? You think that you're going to be able to withstand a DDoS attack better than Amazon? And the answer was no, probably not.
I literally, Shelley, when I was doing Movin', as you know, the digital banking stuff, and we were working with a very well-known North American bank, and we were proposing to do this instance of Movin' that we were building for them on the cloud, and it was their first cloud implementation. That was exactly the conversation we had with the internet security group at this bank. And, the Amazon guys came in and they were like, listen, we're getting pummeled every day, with all of these attacks from everywhere. It's like an immune system. There's no way you're getting the attack vectors that we're getting, and it's making us more secure. So when we tested the two side by side, we did 6 different types of tests, and of 4 of the tests, the traditional bank, failed, and AWS passed. So yeah, that's the classic story, right?
And when you think about it, at the turn of the last century, not the one that just happened, we had an interesting shift. At the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, there was a corporate title called Vice President of Electricity. And this person's job was to make sure the generators were keeping the factory lit up, because all the electricity was generated on premises. And within 20 years, by 1920, that person no longer had a job. It was a line item on a P&L that said electricity coming off the grid. And there was a power grid. And we've never looked back. You have a generator as a backup when the power grid fails you. So I can imagine, and most of my clients have followed that metaphor. Mostly everyone's got everything in the cloud, and they keep a local backup. And truthfully, the local backups are generally offline because they know they can't defend against anything comparatively.
So you're both putting this in a bigger context. This development from Microsoft, this Marjano 1 chip, to operate it. First of all, you're going to need more than one chip. So this speaks to a data center and high levels of security. And as we talked about just a few minutes ago, a completely new kind of security. And Shelly, you corrected me correctly. You're like, well, it's actually not going to be human beings managing that process. That's going to be fully automated. That'll be run by AI. So there's been this trend over the last 10 years, Shelly, to basically migrate all compute to the cloud. And for lots of good reasons, sometimes regulatory, sometimes contractual, sometimes business strategy reasons, people have been resistant to that. But gradually, lo and behold, everybody's migrating to the cloud. We all do it ourselves. We all use these SaaS-based apps that are in the cloud. And so, gradually we're being conditioned to the cloud. Now, we've had Bruce Schneier, the security expert, on our show before, and he's a great person to speak to about this topic because he views big tech with kind of a suspicious eye. Like, he looks at them, he's like, yeah, we should be skeptical about these people and their motives. His perspective is that their approach to security, this cloud, this idea, the argument you both have just rehearsed, which is, in union there's strength. If we're all inside the same fortress, we can have better defenses and so on. He's like, that's a feudal system. That's a medieval practice where, the villagers lived near the castle in case someone was attacking. We could all go inside the fort. And he's like, basically, this is about choosing which feudal master you're going to serve. Now, he said that to me years ago. Here we are today, and I think it's quite true. These big tech companies keep getting bigger. They clearly have globe-dominating ambition. It's also clearly a U.S. versus China kind of geopolitical or geostrategic issue. And what you're saying to me now is that this quantum breakthrough that Microsoft just announced is going to greatly accelerate that process, not only because you need a special cloud with the ability to keep the temperatures cool and run these chips, and they require all sorts of special care and feeding, but in addition, the security that's going to be required, and that means you're going to have AI at scale. Let me offer a new idea into the conversation just to see how you guys respond. So Jeremiah Owang, who is a business strategist in San Francisco, who I enjoy hearing from
Good
time
guy.
to time. We should invite him on the show.
We should have him on the show.
Yeah, he's been studying AI, and particularly he's been looking at agents. So AI agents, agentic agents. And he came up with a new thing, which I thought was pretty interesting. He just popped this out a couple weeks ago, which is, he said, look, we have a concept for B2C, and we have a concept for B2B, right? So most businesses today have integrated that notion, and they understand which of those two, or maybe sometimes both of those business practices. He said, what we don't have yet, and we haven't developed yet, is a theory of A to A, which is agent to agent. Because, of course, if I have an agent representing me and doing transactions on my behalf, booking flights and so forth, that agent's going to be interacting with an agent on the other side.
That's right. I mean, you could just call it marketing to bots, and people. Our practice is getting there now. We're starting to talk about it. But
AI
where did you want to go with that?
Well, so those agents, I don't think I'm going to be managing my own agent, right? I'm assuming that's going to be a service that I pay for.
So hold on. No. See, I think that's wrong.
Okay.
So within 36 months, and I hate to make time predictions, but I think I'm good with this one.
You're yourself with that. Yeah.
Code and content are going to be free.
Yeah.
And let's get some definitions just for here, because there are no words for half of the stuff we're describing here. So like no one has a real name for any of this. People love to use agents and agentic in the same sentence and conflate them. But for us, and maybe they are the same, but for this conversation, let's make a distinction.
Okay.
Agents for our conversation here today will be things that will be AI modules that do a thing. They perform a function. You can think of them as functions. So what does it do? It recognizes a face. It can clone a voice. It may have many complex things that happen inside of it, but it does a thing for us. And an agentic system orchestrates those agents into an outcome so that I can have 25 different agents all orchestrated to go and do something like you just described, book my travel. One is going to go search the web and look for the best price. One is going to interpret those prices in the context of the value proposition that the overarching agentic system is tasked with. For example, when I fly for business, I only sit in aisles 2 through 4. I only sit on the aisle. I only fly during the day. Every ticket must be refundable because I never know when I have to cancel the ticket and because the clients change my flights all the time. So I wouldn't have to tell Siri or Gemini that in my phone. Over time, the neural network part of that, the part of the stack that learns, would learn these are the behaviors exhibited. It's reading emails and summarizing. So Rob and Brett want Shelly to be so-and-so. It's going to know, go make that travel arrangement. So an agentic platform that's running locally is going to learn what's happening. This has nothing to do with the cloud at all and won't need to. And so what part will happen in the cloud and what kind of new APIs, serverless or server-based, are going to facilitate the AI going directly to Delta, not through an OTA, like the online travel agencies. Like, I'm not going to Travelocity. I'm not going to hotels.com. I'm not going to any of that. I'm going my agent's going right to Delta, or the agent inside this agentic system's going right to Delta, going right to United, going right to American. Okay, this meets the schedule. This meets the criteria. Now, how does it determine that criteria and that value proposition that you're talking about? I may have another avatar or agent or agentic part of my phone that says, oh, you're not traveling for business. You're traveling personally. You're willing to sit in a window. You're willing to sit in coach. You're willing, as long as it may be premium comfort or economy, the schedule is more important. It doesn't need to be a refundable ticket. You know you're going to see grandma or whatever. And that agent is a price agent, not a value agent. Mm-hmm. And now you have to market, if you are an airline, to both of those, and you don't know which one.
How do you market to agent AIs? This is something I talk about a lot.
No, we know. We do know. We've been marketing. It's called SEO. We've been marketing to the Google bot for 20 years. It's just a different twist on that marketing to the Google bot. We know how to market to bots. Everybody in the whole marketing business knows how to market to a bot.
That's fabulous.
All right, guys. Well, listen, we gotta go to break, all right?
Oh yeah, that's great. We should go break. That's fine.
But after the break, but let's talk about this, because China just launched the DeepSeek equivalent of agentic AI this week as well. So we should talk about that.
We're going to go to a break.
I know. We're going to go to break. You're listening to The Futurists. I'm Brett King with my co-host Rob, and of course Shelly Palmer is our guest. We'll be right back. Provoke Media is proud to sponsor, produce, and support the Futurist podcast. Provoke.fm is a global podcast network and content creation company with the world's leading fintech podcast and radio show, Breaking Banks. And of course, its spin-off podcast, Breaking Banks Europe, Breaking Banks Asia Pacific. But we also produce the official Finovate podcast, Tech on Reg, and Emerge Everywhere, the podcast of the Financial Health Network. For information about all our podcasts, go to Provoke.fm or check out Breaking Banks, the world's #1 fintech podcast and radio show. Welcome back to the Futurists. Before the break, we were getting into some of the advancements that China's been making, essentially because of the CHIPS Act driving, some extreme efficiency with existing GPU techs and, with DeepSeek. And then just this week, we heard about this new agentic AI platform, Manus, launched in China, which is showing incredible results. But not only that, China has also released this week news, March the 11th actually, on a new bismuth-based transistor instead of silicon architecture, which could revolutionize chip design because it's 40% faster and uses 10% less energy than Intel's standard chipsets in this. Now, this is not commercially available technology yet, but it looks like it will be going that way. And, this is appears to be an interesting side effect of the CHIPS Act. So, Shelly, what do you think about the innovation that's happening in the compute power space at the moment? What should we be looking for, given you've got the AI stuff and compression happening there, but you've also got compute power being contested?
So I have a couple different thoughts about this. And look, Wall Street did what Wall Street does on, right around December 20th, DeepSeek V3 became generally available. DeepSeek had been around for a year or so before that. They're on our radar. In my CES keynote on January 8th, I showed off V3, and I told the audience in the room, this was trained on GPT-4. How do we know? Because the first question we ask every model we spin up is, what are you and how are you trained? And it said it was GPT-4. It was unabashedly thought it was GPT-4. And it was done with this technique called knowledge distillation. And they do have a little secret sauce. The white papers show a very specific way that, I won't get into the technical details, but a very specific way that they made a algorithmically more efficient way to do what perceptrons and backpropagation does. And they did it because, for whatever reason, they did it because they did it. Whether they were forced to because of the CHIPS Act or whether they were just innovative, they did it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Wall Street goes crazy 20 days later when R1 shows up, which is the reasoning engine, and NVIDIA loses $600 billion in market cap overnight. And that's basically the same weekend that the newly inaugurated President Trump and a bunch of tech pros stand up in front of the world and say, we're going to spend $500 billion on brute force compute. Stargate's going from $100 billion to $500 billion. Let's go. And, ironic, the timing was a little ironic. But what I think everyone misunderstood, not the investors, because who knows what markets do, algorithmic efficiency and brute force compute have gone hand in hand since the dawn of compute. You build better chips, you build better computers, you get better algorithms. You just
use software that can, exactly.
Software is going to take advantage of it, and this is the world we live in. Now, what I think is fascinating is that DeepSeek, being open source, was instantly available on GitHub and Hugging Face. By Amazon and Microsoft spun it up, made it part of Bedrock and Azure Cloud. I mean, boom! You could by Monday morning after the announcement, you could start doing anything you wanted in the cloud with it. We're running it locally, and it comes in a bunch of flavors. You can. There's a 405 billion parameter model, but there's a 3 billion parameter model with 4int that, while it's a little crippled, it'll literally run on your phone. It'll actually run on a MacBook. And so you've got versions of this that'll run in all kinds of places. And this is the part that I find fascinating. And Brett, it's a long way of getting your question. When you think about big compute clouds and why I need to go to the cloud and what I need to do there versus what I need to do here right now that is none of anybody's business and can live in an app
on the smartphone.
It's and once that's out in the wild and you download it and it does something for you, is if you don't need the outside world, if I'm right and code and content go from where they are now to free, and I go into a world of social production where I just describe something and what I've described becomes reality. I grew up in a world, as you did, where technical superiority was the key to artistic freedom. In order for me to begin my career as a composer producer, when I was starting out in the music business, professionally, you needed to be able to sight sing, meaning someone hands you a page of music and you sing what's on the page like you've been practicing it your whole life, or you didn't get the job. And whether it was whether you were playing an instrument or whether you were singing, that was absolutely a requirement in the New York jingle scene to get into the business. And everybody, that was the baseline. Those were the poker chips. You want to play this table? This is the ante. And so this idea that technical superiority was the key to artistic freedom was absolute. If I heard something in my head, I had two choices. I either had the technical chops to play it for you, or I had the technical chops to write it down so someone else could play it for you. Otherwise, it stayed locked in my head forever. Anyone born today, anyone who's interfacing with any level of content or any level of creative today, no matter if it's something a human can understand, a pattern, code, prose, video, multimodal, any multimodal way to emote as a human, if you can describe it, you can have it. So we know technical superiority is no longer the key to artistic freedom. Just the ability to think something up and describe it is the key to artistic or technical freedom. Wow. This is so different. And so that world needs to be interpreted. Like if you're thinking about the future, you have to think about it in the context of there's never been a limit on good ideas. There's never been a limit on, in fact, you could argue that ideas were worthless unless they could be realized. Oh, ideas are a dime a dozen. Well, that's always been true because execution has been impossibly hard. In a world of social production, execution is impossibly easy. Now the ideas will compete with one another at a level we've never seen before. Never seen. And it will be done distributed as well as in the cloud. I don't think the cloud world has the lock that they're going to have. I could argue back that, big corporations are going to need cloud. The big models need intense amounts of compute. But once you distill down a bit, like if you go onto Git, you can go grab like the whole public internet in about 50 petabytes. And they've already stripped away all the porn and all the hate speech, and they've taken out the objectionable stuff, and it's kind of like a raw data set of the scraped internet from a few months ago. And anyone can get it. So if I'm going to use that for my, like, distill my knowledge down off of that, or if I'm going to pull a small model of the public internet, add my own data to it, crunch it down to just the compute I need, and then, if you think about, we started talking about quantum and Brett, you're talking about bismuth-based chips, but just think about just the Moore's law in the context of all of this, right? The density of transistors on silicon will double every, call it 12 to 18 months. That's pretty much been true.
Yeah, but now we've got AI on top of
that,
with compressed reasoning and compressed intelligence and the scaling laws applying on top of that. Yeah.
Remember Marty Cooper, the inventor of the handheld cell phone? So Marty's got a law called, he's 96 years old, by the way, right now. I talked to him a couple of weeks ago. 96, God bless him. He's working on hearing aids that are AI based right now that can sort out conversations because he wants to fix his own hearing. He's like 96, awesome. Guy's amazing. Awesome. Anyway, Cooper's law is that the size of a telecommunications network will double every 30 months. And it's been true since he said it in the 60s.
I did not know that.
And the capacity, rather not the size, the capacity of the telecommunications networks. And that, if you think about Metcalfe's law, the law of accelerated returns and Moore's law, all in this context, you realize we've been going towards these giant network effects, these giant compute clouds, because we've needed all of that horsepower to do everything we needed to do. But Brett, Rob, what if you turn that around for a second and all of a sudden it's just sitting here and it's nobody's business but mine. My PII, my PHI, my credit card data, mine. I don't need anybody else. And my agent's going to go out and hang out and do its thing and come back. And there's no Microsoft or Amazon or Facebook involved or Google involved.
Yeah, but you're getting that phone from somebody. So Shelly's holding.
No, but let me give you a simple example, Rob. Right, of what Shelly's talking about. Right now, you've got your phone, and if you want to use Siri or one of or Gemini, one of these voice activated models, it's going off to the cloud. And that's why you get a lag in the communication. But imagine having a conversational AI on the phone, embedded in the phone, with all of the capability that we have with ChatGPT today. And you can talk to it in real time without any of that conversational lag. That is within sight of being possible. And then you apply that to the agency model and start, now you have your data wallet on your phone, your kid's DNA on the phone, your medical records on the phone. And, you want longevity analysis. It's going to be using your secure element, your secure data wallet on your phone, and processing that locally rather than in the cloud. And not just on your smartphone, because your smartphone is going to be soon smart glasses, and you're going to have your compute power, your GPU in your pocket, and the glasses on the face with the interface, and you'll be talking to your computer, right? So that's the sort of exemplar of what Shelley's talking about, where
I agree with
we're going back to this edge computing platform.
I agree with everything you're proposing, but to me, that just means that the stakes of securing my phone have gotten way higher. And so we're going to need a lot better personal security in the near future. And just before the break, we were talking about how these big tech companies are erecting these moats and walls and fortresses around their data centers and around their compute cloud. What are we going to do as individuals? It seems like that's a vulnerability.
So it is a vulnerability. And I think what we don't do as individuals is we don't stratify our security needs very well.
No.
We talk about privacy, data privacy in a most sort of ambiguous way. Everybody wants to be private. But if you think about it, there are a few things. Why is this on my desk? What is this doing where I can reach it? Well, there are a few files in the universe that when the planet ends, I absolutely have to have. You think about what a government is. You think about what a society is. You think about what the world order is. The world order is papers in a bureau. It's a bureaucracy, right? The deed to my house, the record that tells everyone in the world that I'm the landowner, that I own this cow, that I own this farm, that I own this tractor, that this is my money. Those documents belong here.
And Shelly is holding up a USB drive for people who are listening to the show. So he's saying he's got this magic USB drive on his desktop that he carries with him that's got all the keys to the kingdom for his personal kingdom.
But it's a very few files.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about, I don't think it's a total gigabyte of data that I need absolutely secure. Has to survive me. It's like my last digital will and testament, if you will. If I was instantly gone tomorrow and one of my 3 children came in here when they read the open only if I'm dead, not mostly dead, actually dead, little Billy Crystal line in there. No, I swear it's actually what it says. Because, Princess Bride is basically
mostly dead,
the things you quote, when you need to. But
exactly.
At the end of the day, any one of my kids grab that drive, open it up and say, wow, this is what I need to know about all the things that are going on in the world that my father was dealing with and my parents are dealing with. So it's it took me, and this is a security issue 25 years ago, to make me make that. We got hacked in the before time, 25 years back. You think about it, what is it to be hacked in 2000? What did you have online that you could get hacked on? These guys took out the business computer network. We were back then. It was literally an Ethernet style network, local. We had a server internally. We didn't do much online because there wasn't much to do online. There really were no clouds. They got in. They started beating up our data, and it was. I just swore to the universe, this will never happen again. And when it does, because it will inevitably happen again, I want to make sure that the files I need are accessible no matter what. And that was just a hard lesson to learn. You never feel more vulnerable than when you get actually hacked, when you get hit.
Yep.
I've had DDoSes, I've had other stuff, but when someone gets into your system, and I think it was reinforced when WikiLeaks was put on the internet, that whole WikiLeaks incident, and they had hit Sony. I saw 12 emails that I'd written to various Sony executives. There was not, they were just, hi, how are you emails. There was nothing big, right? And I was writing my newsletter back then, as I do today. And there were a lot of executives that had their copies in their email accounts of my daily newsletter. So I showed up a lot. It was just a newsletter. God, you feel like someone's just, done something terrible. So
Yeah, it's like being burglarized.
There is some interesting tech coming together for this, yeah.
So my point is,
sorry, go ahead, Shelly.
No, just to finish the point. The point is, the reason I brought this up is that if personal security becomes a thing, Rob, we as a society need to understand what are the keys to the kingdom versus stuff that, like, okay, if someone had it, it wouldn't be that big a deal as to
they got into my social media.
Yeah, they stole my Instagram account. It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, we don't do that. So I think everyone's going to have to learn to take care of it.
In fact, everything now is going to two-factor security, which people don't always take seriously. And we're kind of being conditioned to be laissez-faire, a little bit sloppy about that as well, because it's like all the same level of security for everything when everything isn't quite as valuable. So, okay, let's scale this up.
There's a few things that are going to happen here, Rob, that, is going to be interesting. First of all, if you want to be in this AI-led world, the agentic AI world that Shelly's been talking about, you're going to have to train these models on your own data. So you're going to have some ability to secure that data in a way. So there's some interesting companies like Drumwave out of Silicon Valley working on data wallets and stuff like that might enable you to have that core data that you could use for a personalized LLM, for example. But then what you also have to do is you have to, we talk about this in banking, KYC. You're going to have KYM, right? Or KYA, right? You're going to have to know that this agent is authorized to represent you and have some link to that in some way. That's probably also going to be signed, hashed on your phone or something like that.
No, and it's kind of like the crypto wallet problem. If you lose your credentials, good luck. Like, there goes your key data, right? This is a scary thing to me. I don't have a high confidence level in most people figuring this stuff out without a great deal of help. It's, we're lazy and we're busy and we have other responsibilities and we're trying to raise families. So I think that most people are going to phone it in.
By the way, Rob, the most important thing for this entire episode is what Brett just said and what you just said. It's very easy to imagine a future where all of this is happening. It is very hard to imagine an actual future where all of this is happening.
You mean where people are taking their security seriously and actually managing their own personal data and training their own agents and,
Yeah, because the agents will train themselves, but the security part of this, like, who are you going to give the keys to your house to? Who are you giving the keys to your bank? So the reason it's interesting with Apple, and Apple just postponed their Siri.
That was
Siri,
interesting.
Right?
Why do you think that was, Shelley?
They're not ready.
It's not ready for prime time.
No obligation to do it soon. They're under an obligation to get it right.
Do it right.
Yeah.
And so Manus said that it can be done, but Apple doesn't have it. Tim Cook's whole thing is super security, total privacy. Your data's yours. It's in the iPhone, secure enclave. You can't get to it. It's like, great. You got my PHI because you have 80,000 data points a day coming off my Apple Watch. You know when I breathe, you know when I sleep, you know when I walk, you know what I eat. It's like, okay. So my credit cards are an Apple Wallet. You got all my location data, everything I do. You know every app I've opened, every keystroke. Like, that phone knows a lot about me. Mm-hmm. So if I can run something locally on the phone that is as secure as the phone is supposed to be, and Apple says they can't get to my stuff, I can trust that as my that's, Rob, the security we're talking about, if it happens there. If Apple can't keep that promise, what reality? Like, tell me a future where you're giving OpenAI your credit cards for them to use for you. Not ever happening at scale.
I thought about that today, Shelley, because I thought about the fact that I haven't had to update my iCloud, secure element password in quite a while, right? And I haven't had a hack situation. I have had my Apple Card, be compromised, but that's because the PAN model, even tokenized, is, just grossly inadequate for the type of compute power we have these days, and the type of social engineering attacks that are going on, but anyway, that's an aside. But, Apple's done a pretty decent job with the secure element thus far.
Guys, let me shift gears here a little bit because we've been talking a lot about personal security, big topic, important topic for our listeners. But there's some bigger stakes involved in this contest, in this quest for quantum computing and quantum encryption. And they're at the national level, or let's say the geopolitical level. And these days, it's fashionable to bash the federal government. And there's a group of gangsters right now that are giving a frontal lobotomy to the federal workforce, including a lot of folks with institutional knowledge that are being laid off with no plan on how to recover and maintain that information. And I bring that up because this entire Microsoft initiative would not exist if it weren't for DARPA, the people that brought us cell phones and satellite telecommunications and that thing called the internet. So there's a DARPA quantum initiative. And involved in that program, not just Microsoft, there are a couple of private companies that have been invited in because DARPA's process is always to spark and start, but they give it out to the free enterprise, right? They're there to foster free enterprise. They're not there to dominate and control these technologies. But they did it in concert with the Oak Ridge National Lab, Los Alamos National Lab, Air Force Research Lab, and NASA Ames. In other words, this is an initiative that has been driven by the federal government. And people tend to forget what the point of our federal government is. 77% of it is there to protect us from threats. And sometimes they're very abstract threats, or in this case, a very abstruse threat that we can barely articulate. That's the mission of DARPA, right? They're there to detect every new capability and find out if it can be used in an offensive or defensive manner. And that's why they have a quantum initiative. And that's what Microsoft was responding to in building this new Marjana 1 chip. So here, to close our show, I just wanted to give a little shout out to our federal government that actually does some things very, very well in keeping us all safe. And collective security has been a common theme in this show. So let me underscore that by saying the driver for all of this isn't a big cloud company or a big technology company on the West Coast. It's the federal government.
I think, Rob, I agree with you, but I'll just say, isn't it interesting that we've had DeepSeek, we've had Manus, we've had this new chipset tech that we're talking about. China deployed 250 gigawatts of solar energy last year. That's more than what the US has deployed in its history. China is doing some pretty crazy, amazing things, but they've got very, very big government R&D budgets for these sort of scientific developments. And you can see that happening with the number of patents that are being issued and so forth. And right now we've got a significant attack happening, on the NSF and the NIH in terms of budgets. We've tried to stop China with the CHIPS Act.
That's not Chinese attacking our budgets. That's the
no, I know. Yeah. But this is like how is the US going to maintain its competitive innovation cycles without that sort of level investment going into the sciences?
You're asking me. That's a different show, my friend. We definitely want to cover that topic. We should have Shelly back to talk about that. Let's talk about the.
Understand,
it's always great to have you on, Shelly.
Thank you so much. Just understand, China has a set of problems that we also have here, but they have a set of problems. By 2100, they're going to go from 1.4 billion people in China to about 630 million, million people rather. And their aging population, they need to do stuff that at a scale and at a level that we can't really comprehend here. And when I think about AI, and I think about technology, the thing I think about the most is nobody. We talk about Moore's law. We talk about Metcalfe's law. We talk about the law of accelerating returns. We talk about Ray Kurzweil and the law of singularity is near. Says, we're going to have 20,000 years of progress in the 21st century. You can intellectualize that. You can draw it on a graph. I think over the last 6 months, I have emotionalized it. I've never studied harder. More stuff has never come at me faster ever. I have never needed to know more. I've never felt that I knew less than I do right now. Every morning I wake up feeling like, oh my God, will I be able to read all the right things, talk to the right people, know what I'm supposed to know? My client's going to ask me stuff that, am I going to have to understand what, the Chinese have more bismuth in China than anywhere else in the world. And bismuth chips is like, this is what I need today. Yeah. And the answer is, yeah, I do. And there's going to come a time in the very, very, very near future where no one can keep up with what's happening. And I don't know what that future looks like, because while that's always been true, there's always more to be seen that can be, was the song, more to be read, heard, more to be seen that can never be seen, more to experience than can ever be experienced. This is stuff we need to understand. We're getting into a world where the divide between the data elite and the non-data elite, the AI elite and data elite versus the just data elite, like the stratifications, I don't think we've seen this before. I don't even know how to think about it, let alone live in that world. We're all going to experience it together, so we're going to find out. But yeah, there's another show. I'd love to come back and talk about, what this enduring AI arms race is going to look like. But I think a better way to think about it is this enduring technology arms race, because this is just about who gets there first. The U.S., if it wants to dominate this century, needs to do the one thing I think we might actually have a shot at, which is dominate AI. Because if you don't, you can't dominate the future. Can't be done.
That brings us to the topic of open source versus closed proprietary models. So next show.
And also industrialized AI versus consumer AI. That's a whole different ballgame as well. So
thanks,
Shelly Palmer. It's always a pleasure to have you on this show. You're so much fun to talk to. You're so knowledgeable, and you gracefully jump from one topic to another and follow our crazy lead. We're not that organized, candidly. Shelly, where can people find you and learn more about you?
Don't tell the audience that sort of stuff, Rob. Come on, man. We spend weeks researching for every episode.
Our giant research team is actually feeding us lines.
Exactly.
So you can learn everything you want to learn at shellypalmer.com, ShellyPalmer.com. We have a free newsletter that I do every morning. You're welcome to that. It's out 7 days a week. And during the week, it's I rant about something, and we give you the 5-6 stories that I think matter. And then on the weekends, as a wrap up on Saturday, on Sunday, I write a thought leadership piece, whatever has my attention for the week. We've got all kinds of courses and free resources at shellypalmer.com/AI. Everything there is free, and you're welcome to it. So please subscribe to the newsletter, visit the website, reach out with any of your AI questions. We've got some courses you can take that are free. We offer all kinds of consulting services, so please feel free to reach out. And you can, of course, find me wherever social media is found.
Super. Well, wonderful to have you on the show. Brett, always fun to see you. And folks, we'll be back next week with another futurist or another person who's thinking about shaping and influencing the future. Until then, Brett, here we go. Until then, we'll see you
in the future.
Well, that's it for the Futurists this week. If you like the show, we sure hope you did. Please subscribe and share it with the people in your community. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. That really helps other people find the show. And you can ping us anytime on Instagram and Twitter at Futurist Podcast for the folks that you'd like to see on the show or the questions that you'd like us to ask. Thanks for joining. And as always, we'll see you in the future.